Hello? Hello, this is the President. Hello, this is the President of the United States. Who is this? Is it you again?
Look behind you.
This is my private line. How did you get through?
They're everywhere. All the time. We see them every day. But you have to look behind you.
There is nothing behind me. How did you get this number?
The spaceman told me.
What spaceman?
It doesn't matter. I'm telling you about the monsters. Please, you must look behind you.
Young lady, there are no monsters in the Oval Office.
The loudspeaker spoke up and said,
Wait, see me.
the loudspeaker spoke up and said,
Wait, see me.
the loudspeaker spoke up and said,
Wait, see me.
give up, give up, give up, give up, give up.
Wait, see me. Wait, see me. Wait, see me.
I'm Clyde Lewis, and this is Ground Zero. The number is to call tonight, 503-225-0860. That's 503-225-0860. Coming to you live as always. Thanks to Talk Media Network. And, of course, we're going on coast to coast, 7 to 10, Monday through Friday. That's Pacific time. Also linked up on TalkStreamLive.com. We thank them for putting us out there, linking us to radio stations across the country. GroundZero.radio is where you can listen to us and several other shows. Of course, The Secret Teachings with Ryan Gable, Jeremy Scott, Into the Parabnormal. Pick up on those shows, too, as you're listening to the Ground Zero feeds. Have it on GroundZero.radio. Also, you can sign up for Aftermath.media. We have a great selection of shows, great selection of, I guess you could call them montages, the bits we play, all of that, all available. Music, all available to you if you go to Aftermath.media and sign up today. That's Aftermath.media. So the weekend came and went, and I finally found myself getting out of the apartment. I've been staying in because, oh, man, hay fever, it's kicking in. And with all the hot temperatures, we have, a lot of seeds that pop out, mostly the cottonwood and everything. So I sat home. I actually wrote a few shows, like 2 or 3, because I know that I'm going to be going to Roswell midweek. So I figured I'd get caught up on some shows, maybe put some together and have them ready to go. So if I am traveling, I'll always have something available to talk about, something that I've studied or worked on. And so, stayed in the house. But I did manage to get out last night with Ron. We went and saw The Black Phone. It's a film that's really creepy. And it was it reminded me of a lot of things. It just really blew my mind at how they were grabbing onto the aesthetic of the true boogeyman or the true dark man. With the hat, with the devilish face, the white grin, the grinning man. I remember first exposure to something like that was The Man Who Laughs. I mean, we're all fascinated by the Joker. We're all fascinated by, London After Midnight, Lon Chaney, who, you can't find a copy of London After Midnight. In fact, it's one of those movies that I guess you could call it an urban legend. Maybe it happened, maybe it didn't happen. People say they have a copy of it. Speaking of urban legends, I was on the internet over the weekend and I saw this ad, and it said they will pay you $10,000 if you can create a good campfire story. And I thought, I think maybe I'll try this. But as I was reading along, I found out that it's not your typical campfire story. In fact, it has to be something that Dad could tell the Cub Scouts. But then again, I've told stories at campfires, because I was an Eagle Scout. I told stories at campfires that were hideous, missing limbs, even some of the other urban legends like Hookman and leaving a kidney in the tub. And, I was thinking, well, I could write one of these, but no, it probably wouldn't be daddy enough because I know that my mind can go deep into darker realms. And it reminds me of the time that a colleague of mine, Rick Emerson, once told me, he said, hey, we're at a bar. It's Christmas time. You need to tell a scary Christmas story. I didn't know what the hell to talk about. So I just got up and talked about Krampus. And it was then where everybody was like stunned that I'd make up the story about Krampus. I said, it's not made up. It's an urban legend. It's a legend from Germany. It's a folktale. And I can go far beyond these urban legends, of course, because I've studied a lot of, I don't know if they're mythological beings, but they're beings that people see or they claim to see or they dream about. These creatures, whether they be cryptid creatures or aliens or demons or whatever, they're whispered. There's always the whisper around the campfire, and they're passed down from generation to generation to generation. And every time they're told, they either create disgust or they spark fear in the hearts and minds of children and adults alike. It takes a lot now to scare a kid. I mean, they've seen it all. And adults, they scare easily. But when you're talking about urban legends or urban myths, the subjects take many shapes, whether they be bloodthirsty creatures of the night, vengeance-seeking ghouls, vortices that carry people away in the night. All of those stories are told and terror spreads. And not only does terror spread, but experience is then given. And what I mean by that is that if you tell a story about some paranormal experience that's happened to you, chances are there's someone else out there that feels the same or has had the same experience. And that's why when I get into these moods where I want to talk about experiences, I often hope that people will call into the program and share. I mean, it doesn't even have to be, it doesn't have to be your typical paranormal story. I've had stories sometimes that freaked me out, that really didn't deal with ghosts, demons, or anything like that. I mean, we're rich in experiences here in America, all over the country, all over the world. People have strange experiences that they just can't, figure out. And this is why urban legends happen, because people say, well, they know a friend of a friend of a friend who had this experience, or they don't know who it was. They probably read it in an obituary somewhere in an article in the newspaper. And, it's all been mixed into the pot and sprinkled into the collective nightmare of everybody. And it's because we have within us something called the dark archetype, something that Carl Jung had talked about. And some of our nation's, some of the world's eeriest and most persistent stories, whether it be rooted in community lore or in tragedy, always has something to do with the visage of death, meaning the face of death. The face of a pale, tall man with a skeletal-like grin on his face. And some people claim that he wears a hat or a hood or a cloak. And they look demonic. They give them the demonic stare. They give them the demonic look, the demonic smile. And that gets passed around. That image gets passed around. Because, as I said, it happens to a friend of a friend of a friend, or it happens to you. You either dream this dark entity, whether it be an incubus or succubus, you either see this dark entity, a shadow person in the dark, or you've come in contact with the Hat Man, or you've come in contact with the Darkman, the grinning man who wears a hat. And regardless of whether it's true or not, you only know the experience you've had. And that's what I want to talk about tonight on Ground Zero. There was a movie I saw called The Black Phone I want to talk about as well. Really creepy in that regard. 503-225-0860. That's 503-225-0860. I'm Clyde Lewis. You're listening to Ground Zero, and we'll be back. listening to Ground Zero. I'm Clegg Lewis. Urban legends are always frustrating to me because no matter how many times you hear them, you want to stop the storyteller and say, yeah, I've heard this. Seriously. You say, story's a legend. I've heard it all before. There's no facts to back it up. So, and look, I realize that there is no harm in these stories. And people can believe in Kentucky Fried Rats or in exploding cactuses loaded with spiders or hookers that take your kidneys while you sleep. You can believe that if you want. But there are some urban legends that when told over and over and over again, they seem to take on a life all their own. And they can eventually show up in your reality. And it's at that moment, we bear witness to something called a causal manifestation. Many people have read The Stand by Stephen King. And we were introduced to the concept of what is called a psychic predator. Many characters in the story before the apocalypse, okay, they dreamed of a dark man. They called him the Dark Man, and he had a very, very, very winning smile on his face, the Dark Man. And in their dreams, they were told that the Dark Man would show up after a great plague or a great disease that would kill many people. And of course, The Stand parallels a lot with what we went through with COVID-19, of course. And the concept of this grinning man that appears in dreams is a concept that it gets told over and over again as a Hollywood trope, like Nightmare on Elm Street, where teenage children are being visited in their dreams by a child killer named Freddy Krueger. Then, of course, in The Exorcist, if you remember that movie, you remember that before anything happens, like when the priest's mother falls, you see this image. It's a subliminal image. I don't know if you've seen this, but go back and watch The Exorcist if you don't remember. There was a subliminal image of a dark, grinning man with a white face, and it flashed in moments, literally awakening a meme that has haunted many people in all walks of life. This face was supposed to be the face of Captain Howdy, this demon that came forward off of a Ouija board. And eventually we realized that Captain Howdy is Pazuzu, the demon, the winged demon of Mesopotamia. And then now, if you're a Stranger Things fan, there's a character called Vecna. Vecna is another dark figure, similar to this dark man, the grinning man, or the man that shows up that wants something from you, who wants you to pay something, whether it be your soul or money or something. He's there because he wants a response. And so you have Vecna, this dark figure from the TV show Stranger Things, and this guy, this kind of skeletal-looking character, he's there because he wants to prey on young people who feel regret. And he is based, of course, on Freddy Krueger. Freddy Krueger is based on Captain Howdy. Captain Howdy is based on this same character that people see in their dreams all the time. It's this, or see in their rooms at night. They see like the clothes crumpled up in the corner, and somehow it casts a shadow of this character called the Hat Man, or the man, the Dark Man. Or they see the cat, or they, in fact, another reason why I bring this up is because my stepson Liam, we were going to go see that film, The Black Phone, and he couldn't make it. But he said, at first he said he didn't want to see it because he says it terrified him because he had an experience, he said, with Hat Man, and he's in his mind he was trying to find a logical explanation for it. He said he got up one night, went to the bathroom. He says standing there in the stairwell in our apartment, right there midway in the stairwell, was a very tall man. He wore a very black white brim hat. He was bald, big dark sunken eyes, and a toothy grin. And he stood there and he looked at Liam, and he stood there and Liam looked back before turning on the light in the bathroom. And as soon as the light turned on, that dark man with the skeletal face disappeared. I had another friend who had an experience where she saw what looked like the same character you see in the movie Poltergeist 2, Kane. Remember Kane? White hair, sunken cheekbones, smile, all of that. If you read about the unconscious mind, what's deep inside of us, David John Oates always talks about this when he's talking about reversals. This is where dreams are made. This is where all of the monsters that we've worried about and were afraid of when we were kids dwell. They live there in our unconscious mind. And Carl Jung had said that all humans have inherited over time this idea inside of us. We have primordial images that are buried deep in the collective unconscious. They're called archetypes. And they tend to remain buried in the unconscious mind until we dream or until we wake up in the middle of the night and we see something standing in our room, whether it be a shadow person or a dark-eyed child or deep down, we see these images. We respond to these images, and they are programmed into us through religion, art, literature, films, history. So the shadow archetype is the most dangerous one of all. Shadow archetypes have tendencies to invade thoughts, and when those shadowy thoughts become groupthink, there's the possibility that through some quantum trick, a manifestation is about to go down. Something is about to happen. The shadow archetype becomes a real, breathing entity fortified with this groupthink. And if everyone is thinking about the same character, this dark man, the grinning man, the menacing dark figure, the giant, then it would prolong its life in a theoretical sense. It's the idea of generating a tulpa or conjuring a beast. Its image would be a harbinger for a lot of people. And it would be a harbinger to some other event that would eventually cause hardship. We've read about what are known as portents. We've read about psychopomps. We've read about those characters that show up. People start seeing things. They start dreaming things. And we had a lot of people the other night calling us about dreams they had about the end of the world. But I remember I did a show a long time ago where I brought up this grinning man character. I had an experience myself where I was in a dream situation. And I was in South America in this dream because I remember seeing a farmhouse and I saw this windmill and the sun was going down and everything was, like a painting. Everything was dark. The house was dark. It was like a shed house with a windmill that was creaking. And all of a sudden I heard some twig break behind me in this dream. Just fast enough, I looked behind me because I heard the twig break, and standing there was that man. He looked like a farmer with a hat. He was wearing an overcoat and boots. And the minute he saw me, he grabbed me by the head, twisted my neck. The last thing I heard in that dream was the cracking of my neck. The last thing. And I woke up right out of that dream. And what's terrifying is you read stories about how when people fall in their dreams, if they don't wake up, they're dead. If I didn't wake up from that man in black or that man with the grinning face, if I didn't wake up the minute he twisted my neck, I would have died. I know I would have died. It was so real to me that the man with the hat, white face, grinning smile, twisted my neck and killed me in my dream. 503-225-0860. That's 503-225-0860. Back with more Ground Zero. Don't go away.
Take these off, though, please.
Caution, just so you don't hurt yourself.
for the procedure. Tonight.
What?
You're so far gone. The lady doctor thinks sooner is better.
You'll sleep through the whole thing. If I'm honest, it's really the best thing.
Rabbit run, rabbit run, run, run.
Funeral services were held today for 15-year-old Joseph Bell, the 24th victim in Atlanta's child slaughter. As Bruce Hall reports, the woman sources say the theory that many of the youngsters were recruited by homosexuals for sexual favors is the strongest motive
Out of darkness the zombie did call. True pain and suffering he brought to them all. Away ran the children to hide in their beds, for fear that the devil would chop off their heads.
Don't give the farmer his fun, fun, fun. He'll get by without his rabbit pie. So run, rabbit, run, rabbit, run, run.
I'm Clyde Lewis. You are listening to Ground Zero. You can't run. You can't hide. Tonight we talk about Hatman, the Darkman, the grinning visage of death that appears in your room at night. There's a new movie out called The Black Phone, and saw it over the weekend, and it all of the images that were in that film reminded me of Darkman, reminded me of that character, that Carol Pearson, Dr. Carol Pearson, another person who developed an idea of what these archetypical methods, all these things that hide in the shadows. Carol Pearson stated that shadow archetypes surface at times when we as a collective are worried about the future. It seems that shadow archetypes are here to warn us of something that's about to happen, something horrible. And they're here to carry out our destruction if they become autonomous, if they become autonomous egregores. We have to pay attention to them. We try to eliminate or at least protect ourselves from their influences. We either pray or we have to do a seance or something to get rid of these influences. Now, according to Carol Pearson, each and every person she believes has a death wish that can ultimately hurt them. And in general, it will hurt a larger portion of society. Pearson says this. She says, even the healthiest individual will do or say things that hurt other people. Ultimately, the destroyer turns us into villains when we refuse to acknowledge and take responsibility for the harm we do. And we all do harm of some kind. One of my favorite paranormal writers is John Keel. He not only wrote about the Mothman appearances in the 1960s. The Mothman, of course, is one of my favorite cryptids of all time. But Keel, when he wrote about the Mothman appearances in the 1960s, he detailed the dreams of those in the area of Point Pleasant during the alleged Mothman sightings, before the destruction of that huge bridge that went across the Ohio River. The dreams that people were having were of dark men in hats that had pale faces. One was named Apol, and the other was named Indrid Cold. Now, if you ask the question about who is the Grinning Man, who is the Grinning Man, does he have a name? Most people, if they know anything about the heritage or the origins of the Grinning Man, they will say his name is Indrid Cold. There's also the name Apol, which is taken from the word Apollyon or Apollo. Apol was Indrid Cold's assistant. Indrid Cold and Apol are the two Grinning Men. They're characters that are considered shadow archetypes. They both represent death, and wherever they go, destruction follows. John Keel wrote about the foolish Grinning Man and how many people in the area of Point Pleasant were saying that they were dreaming about two of these dark men in hats, and that there were others who would see one or both of them standing in the sidewalk in front of them in broad daylight. The entities were described as tall men. They wore black suits, black suit coat and trousers. They had a craggy, pale face, hollow eyes, and a large, toothy grin. Now, these grinning men would speak very few words and would sometimes ask to borrow things like a ballpoint pen or ask for change and then walk away laughing and being giddy about the whole affair. There was also the reports of people who've encountered these men getting strange phone calls later, strange phone calls that predicted the future. Now, this happened in Point Pleasant. John Keel, who was the reporter who did the report on the Mothman story, he said that when he was in Point Pleasant, he found himself in the middle of this chaos. And he claims, phone calls from Indrid Cold and Apol. Now, if you've seen the Mothman Prophecies, the Richard Gere film, you know that Richard Gere gets a phone call from Indrid Cold. Very electronic, kind of scary, squeaky voice talking about predictions. Now, John Keel had said that he was getting phone calls from Apol. He was getting phone calls from Indrid Cold. And the strange voices that are on the other end of the line were telling him that Pope Paul VI would be stabbed and that Robert Kennedy would be assassinated. Well, eventually, the Pope was attacked and stabbed in the Philippines in 1970. And Robert Kennedy was shot by Sirhan Sirhan in 1968 after the Silver Bridge collapsed. So the Silver Bridge collapsed. People were seeing dreams of the Silver Bridge collapse. They were seeing images of Robert F. Kennedy being shot and the Pope being stabbed and getting phone calls of that. And so the Hat Men, Apol, and, of course, Indrid Cold were making these strange phone calls. It's kind of like I said, it's the plot, sort of like the plot of this new movie called The Black Phone that's in theaters right now. I mean, the dark entity in this particular case is called The Grabber. The Grabber. And the Grabber is actually based on a real entity. It was imagined out of the image of the killer clown John Wayne Gacy, but from there it was the idea of the white-faced demon that wears a hat. And the Black Phone features a cast is led by children. It's mostly the children of the stars of the movie. I know that Ethan Hawke plays this character, the Grabber. But it isn't a simple coincidence that children tend to find themselves at the center of horror stories these days. One of the main reasons behind that choice is they are the embodiment of innocence. And many of us, when we go to films, I mean, these films are made for us, okay? The reason why they're made for us is because we remember how terrified we were when we were children, when rules were off, man. We'd stay out late. We'd do things parents didn't know we were doing. They didn't know where we were, like in Stranger Things and now in this film. And, of course, we had the fear of satanic panic when we were kids, the fear of entities, Ouija boards, and everything else that went with it back when we were children. And even then, we'd see Bloody Mary in the mirror, or we'd see something in the bedroom. 503-225-0860. That's 503-225-0860. Back with more Ground Zero. Don't go away. sent me a creepy picture of a grinning man that they said appeared to them, and it then went into the solar plexus. I don't know. I'm trying to find a way to save it to my. I'm trying to save it so I can put it in the on the Facebook. I'm sorry, it's creepy. That's why I'm stumbling. I'm gonna go to the phones. I'll post it during the break. You'll be able to see this on the Facebook page. It's a creepy picture of what is claimed to be the grinning man, the scary grinning man that shows up. This listener said it went into his solar plexus. Interesting. Let's go to John in Florida. Hey, John, you're on Ground Zero.
Hello, Clyde. Listened to you a long time, and I never thought I'm 65, and I'll make a long story short. Never had any paranormal things happen except one thing. I'm from Toledo. There's this quarry called Centennial Quarry out there in the 70s. People were disappearing out there. All kinds of strange stuff was happening. 1978. I was 21. My friend was 20. We went out there to see what was going on.
Right.
We pull in, and as you know, a quarry, when you go into a quarry to the beach part, there's long drops as you go around, 30, 40 feet. You go around like little hills. Mm-hmm. We pulled up. There's a man in a brim hat, okay? Mm-hmm. He turned and looked at us. His eyes were red as red could be, like bright red. He said, "Don't go back there." Well, we went back there. We're young. We go past this little path, and we get down toward the beach area. There's this barrel, and the moon is above us. And there's a light coming off the water. We don't know where this light's coming from. A barrel sitting there. From the left, a woman came out. From the right, a man came out, and they were wearing hats, like Viking hats with the horns on top.
Yeah.
Definitely human beings, man and a woman. They walked toward this barrel, equal speed, touched it at the same time. The hat, the horns turned into some kind of, Clyde, I get goosebumps thinking about it now. I don't know what they turned into. I have no idea. But they were not human. And at the same time, they looked at my friend and I, Mike, right at us. So we start to run to get out of that place. We get up to the little trail where we got to go through, and somebody spiked it with barbed wire that we can't remove. So, long story short, I had the old Converses on. Remember the thick old soles? Uh-huh. And my friend had we got through that barbed wire, and we got out of there. And to this day, I've never seen. They morphed into I want to say they had the horns, but just some kind of beast-looking thing. And my wife's the only person I've ever told the story to. We've been married 42 years, and the air was almost different. It was like almost static when we got back there.
Wow. I
don't know what they were doing. Do you have any idea what that would be about?
No. Sometimes things like this, they're hard to explain, and this is the most unique story I've heard, actually. And when stories are unique, you just take them for what they are. And like I said, most of the time, I've received stories from people that don't necessarily fit into any particular category. It's just they're bizarre. I had a guy tell me once during he was having a hypnotic retrieval. They were trying to take him back, and he said that he was abducted by what he called aliens. He said he was taken to this area that was stone all around. He thought it was some medieval place. There was torches, and he witnessed a sacrifice. Once again, pale creatures wearing hoods with long knives and sacrificing a child in front of him. Something that he said was Luciferian. Something he said it was definitely some sort of satanic ritual that he witnessed. So
we couldn't figure out what the barrel was about, and we talked about it afterwards. It was a big barrel,
yeah,
and that was meant for us, or I have no idea. But
you never know.
But I thank you for your show, brother.
Yeah,
keep up your good work, man.
Thank you for calling. Appreciate it. Yeah, what a story. Jim in Florida. Hey, Jim, you're on Ground Zero.
How you doing, Clyde? Yeah, I'm a veteran. I've seen bad things. I've seen death, and I'll tell you, when I was a kid. Babysitter of mine had me stay up and watch The Exorcist, right? And was like forced, I'm in there watching it. And I'll tell you, to this day, nothing haunts me more. I've seen bad things, Clyde, and I used to sleep. I wouldn't even lay the way she laid in bed. If my bed got cold, or if my room got cold, I'd be frightened. And like you said, that flashing face, I would see that at night. And the babysitter later on in my life, she goes, why? I seen her out at a bar. We were older. And she said, why did you always hate me? And I said, because you had me watch that movie when I was young. I think it was 75. And it would come out on the first cable channels. And she said, she started laughing at me. And I said, no, it really affected me when I was a child.
Mm-hmm.
Todd, why would something stay with you like that?
Well, like I say, when you're watching The Exorcist, there's a lot of subliminal stuff. And one of the basic archetypes, and I'm not kidding you, go back and watch it now. One of the basic archetypes is a grinning, white-faced man. And I don't know if you remember that before the devil would show up, there was always a subliminal image of that white-faced, dark-eyed demon. And it would grin. It would have this evil grin on its face. And yeah, flashing something like that, which is an archetype that's very well known, that shows up in your bedroom at night, that shows up in your dreams at night, that's a visage of death. That's corpse paint. That's every nightmare you've ever had, whether you wake up in a graveyard or wake up with a corpse in your bed. Those are the things that are terrifying. And people actually, when they're laying there in bed and they see this character or they feel this character in the room with them, they're paralyzed. They can't move. It's like something is sitting on their chest and it doesn't want them to breathe. That's what people say. There was a study done with a number of I think Vietnamese men, all died in their sleep because they had nightmares about this character that would sit on their chests at night and they couldn't breathe, and so they died of heart attacks. They'd have heart attacks in the night. They'd sleep and they'd have heart attacks. And see, that's the thing, is that now, sure, we have science to tell us that, people are dying at young ages of heart attacks, men, young people. We have the vaccine, perhaps, that could have caused this. But there's a metaphor that goes with that, and that is the child eater. That is the character of the white-faced grinning man. They call it the child eater. In this movie, this new movie, they call it the grabber. In Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, if you remember, there was a character that was trying to kidnap the children for the king, and he had a white face and a hat, and he would laugh and he'd have lollipops. See, this is the same visage that haunts people, haunts children, and it is a child eater. Especially, what's interesting is the appearance of this character now that we're discussing things like abortion and death of children. It always seems to rear its head during times when these discussions come up, and I think it's because people dream it or they experience it, and it's important to tell you the children aren't safe. They're just not safe. 503-225-0860. That's 503-225-0860. I'm Clyde Lewis. You're listening to Ground Zero, and we'll be back. Hey guys, it's Clyde Lewis from Ground Zero. With the rise of the cancel culture and an increase in social media censorship, we need to make a big change. So we decided to create a very unique digital platform. It's called Aftermath.media. It's an exclusive online multimedia library featuring an interactive social media section with a chat room, videos, audio clips, archived Ground Zero podcasts, documents, books, and magazines. Our news aggregator provides current news relating to many of the topics we cover. We're expanding our research and study groups as well, which presently includes Tracy Twyman, William Cooper, Nate Russell, and Jim Keith. Also, check out popular podcast Conspirafact with Wes and Bill. Updated apps will be available soon. The monthly subscription for Aftermath is only $10 a month, and if you sign up now for the yearly subscription, it's only $79. If you want to hear the shows you love and support Great Talk Radio, go to aftermath.media. Again, that's aftermath.media.
Are you intrigued by Paranormal Talk Radio? You'll love the new Paranormal Radio app from TalkStream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the Paranormal Radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment, including the network you're listening to right now, the Paranormal Radio app, free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
Spinning complacently in the darkness, covered and blinded by a blanket of little lives, false security has lulled the madness of this world into a slumber. Wake up. An eye is upon you, staring straight down and keenly through, seeing all that you are and everything that you can never be. Yes, an eye is upon you, an eye ready to blink. So face forward, with arms wide open and mind reeling. Your future has arrived. Are you ready to go?
The loudspeaker spoke up and said,
Wait, Jimmy.
the loudspeaker spoke up and said,
Wait, Jimmy.
the loudspeaker spoke up and said,
Wait, Jimmy.
give up, give up, give up, give up, give up.
Wait, Jimmy. Wait, Jimmy. Wait, Jimmy.
I'm Clyde Lewis, and this is Ground Zero. The numbers to call tonight, 503-225-0860. That's 503-225-0860. So I'm fixated on a picture that I just posted on Facebook.com/Ground Zero Radio. Okay, now, whenever I post pictures of things, and people are, what's this about? Well, if you're listening to the show, you know what it's about, and I'm going to explain it to you here. So I get this picture sent to me. I don't know where it came from. All I know is that a listener sent it to me. Thank you, Josh. Listener sent it to me. Grinning Man sighting, it said, when I clicked on the email, and I looked at the picture, said, this was a picture that was snapped before it went into his solar plexus. So I guess he was sleeping and this entity was in his room. He snapped a picture of it, and then it jumped on his chest, sat on his solar plexus, and tried to get into his solar plexus. And this is the picture he got in the dark, I guess. I don't know if it's this person, because usually when I get these pictures sent, I assume that the pictures come from the person, but it could be from somewhere else, okay? So I'm just saying that I got a picture sent to me. It could be from anywhere. So, but I've never seen it in a movie. I've never seen it anywhere else. And this is a picture of what purports to show the Grinning Man, or at least one version of the Grinning Man. And believe me, it's very true to what I've seen with regard to the Grinning Man. It's if you see it, you know, you could ask yourself if you've had a dream about this person, or you've seen this person, or what. I mean, and even I don't know what to say. I mean, I'm looking at this going, this is a good picture. I mean, it's kind of shadowy and blurry in a bit, but it's really a good picture. So whatever you might think, give me a call. I mean, if you've seen this picture somewhere before, let me know, but I have never seen anything like this before. So they sent us a picture of this, the Grinning Man sighting, the Hat Man. He's not wearing a hat, though. It looks like he's wearing a crown. He's wearing a crown on his head. So he's got a crown on his head. I think he's got like long hair and a white face with these weird black eyes that look really demented, and this weird smile with the teeth are kind of, it's like only a few teeth are showing, not the whole smile. It's like the front teeth and the incisors are showing. Kind of an interesting look. And the reason why I'm doing this show is because I went and saw the film The Black Phone, and every time I watched it, I kept thinking about the character or the stories I hear of Hat Man, or the stories and Liam once told me he saw Hat Man in our house, and he described him the same way this picture looks. And so I don't know. If you have an opinion on the picture, would love to hear from you. And definitely just go to facebook.com/Ground Zero Radio. That's facebook.com/Ground Zero Radio. There's this entity in this movie is called the Grabber. The Grabber has been based, what I read, is based on John Wayne Gacy. And children are in the cast, and haunting the children is this character that is a real abductee, or a person who abducts children, and it just touches, I think, on the unconscious mind, the darker areas where we're frightened children sometimes seeking answers in an unfathomable universe. But I contend that we not only deal with entities of the universe, but characters that can live somewhere in the multiverse. Same writers of The Black Phone are responsible for one of the most terrifying motion pictures that was actually said to be scientifically recorded as being, and what they do is they monitor the beats per minute of the audience. And the movie was called Sinister. Sinister used to be, there was a pale, grinning pagan entity known as Bagul. Bagul was this long-haired, white-faced character, and they called him the Devourer of Children, with origins that dated back to the Babylonian times. Well, of course, you go back to the Babylonian times, you have Baal, you have Moloch. Bagul commands the minds and souls of the young, forces them to murder their families, recording the incidents and preserving the spirit of the murderers in order to recruit other children to commit murder. Sounds a little familiar, doesn't it? Sounds like Slender Man. Bagul, of course, was made from different characters, but the bottom line is this is a Saturn type of character, Kronos character. If you remember, Kronos, Saturn, devoured his own children. So the power of the unknown, the power of these archetypes, are what create the inner terror, the thing that makes the blood chill. It's that darkness that creeps into your bedroom and hides the monster under your bed, or the terror of walking through the woods at night and hearing an unfamiliar sound. I mean, these are all things that we can relate to because we've all felt them in one way or another. We all have felt the fear of not knowing. And that's sometimes the scariest feeling of all, not knowing. I mean, these grinning cloud-like entities, they look like clowns. They look like scary clowns. It's like what Lon Chaney once said, never trust a clown at midnight. I mean, you'd be fine if a clown was walking around a circus, but imagine a clown with black balloons standing on your street corner. You wouldn't trust that clown, would you? You wouldn't trust that entity, and that's the whole point. The grinning entity, the clown-faced entity, and many people even believe, and I was reading legends about where the hooded, cloaked death figure came from France, came from the times of the plague. But many people would say that the cloaked, hooded death visage, or death, of course, based on Kronos again, was certainly a portent, or at least a harbinger of death. They called it the angel of death. And, of course, a lot of these angels that are pale and wearing black, they've been talked about in the Bible, much like Indrid Cold, the grinning man, or Apol, the angels of the story. They showed up right before disaster in Point Pleasant. And if you really want to think about it for a moment, think about this. Imagine Lot, story of Lot, and how these two figures showed up. Apol and maybe Indrid Cold grinning and saying something's about to happen to Sodom and Gomorrah. We all know what happened after they showed up. 503-225-0860. That's 503-225-0860. If you want to get a little bit of a chill, go to the website right now. Go to the Facebook page. Take a look at this entity. It looks like a clownish, white-faced, grinning man. 503-225-0860. We'll be back. 503-225-0860. That's 503-225-0860. This is really creepy. I mean, I'm sorry. I'm laughing because it's scary. This picture that's on the Facebook page. Guys, please, if you do anything tonight, if you want to get a good scare, I'm laughing because it's staring at me right now. I've got it up because I want to take a look at it. I'm just looking at it, how terrifying it is. If you can imagine being in bed, sleeping in your room, and you look up and there is this, I don't know what you'd call it. Go to Facebook.com/Ground Zero Radio. I'm going to go to Justin in Arizona. Hey, Justin, you're on Ground Zero.
All right, thanks for having me.
You bet.
So I kind of caught it. I tuned in and just caught the tail end of you talking about that creature or whatever, the demonic dude from The Exorcist, and I remember that very vividly. Growing up, seeing that movie when I was a kid. But the reason I called is because you started describing it a little bit more, and it sounds like what my kid's been seeing in our house for the last 2 weeks. And I didn't really think much of it. She started talking about it probably 2 weeks ago, and she said this guy keeps staring at her in her room, in the hallway, all over the place. He's got a white face, black eyes, top hat, and like a coat, she called it. It was all the way to the ground.
Right, but exactly.
That's what she's been describing. So I just kind of wanted to call in and get your take on it because this is the first I've heard of it.
Well, yeah, it was funny because I always thought, now for me, I saw The Grinning Man, and I've always had this obsession with The Grinning Man, the idea of a dark figure with a grinning face staring back at me. And but then Liam said to me that he saw Hat Man. And I said, Hat Man? He goes, yeah. Don't you know who Hat Man is? I said, I've never heard of Hat Man. And he said, he said he was standing in the stairs. He had a white face, grinning face, wore a hat. I says, well, are you sure it's not Slender Man or something like that? No. He says, he wears a hat. He grins at you. He's got a white face, and he was standing in the stairwell. Then I found out Heidi Hollis wrote a book about Hat Man. And I said, well, then I guess Hat Man is a real character, a real person that people see in their dreams, they see in their bedroom at night. And, of course, then you've got your other groups of shadow people and MIBs, Men in Black, and you have all of these other visions. And then, like I said, someone sent me this picture that's on my Facebook page right now, facebook.com/Ground Zero Radio. I'm looking at it, and it's terrifying me just even staring at it because it's like, I've never seen anything like it in my life. It's got such a weird look on its face. The smile is kind of, creepy, and the eyes look like they're out of place. It's just and he's wearing a crown, it looks like. And so, yeah, I would say, how old is your daughter?
She's 7, and we monitor everything they watch. I mean, there's no way she would have seen anything like this. And like I said, it just came out of the blue about 2 weeks ago. she came up next to me crying and said she's seen him. And so we talked about it for a minute, and I said, okay, so this is the first time? She said, no, I've been seeing him. And I said, why didn't you tell me?
Have you had any deaths in the family, or anybody dying that you know of, or anybody that's in pain or harmed?
Kind of a friend of the family, we just found out, has some pretty serious issues with cancer, but nothing that they would know. They don't really know this person.
Well, I mean, she wouldn't know, but this being could be showing up, wanting to tell her something or wanting to talk to her. But that's the thing, is that you need to ask her if this being has said anything to her, or what she's feeling when she sees this being.
Well, and so we've discussed this. He's never spoke to her. He only stares at her. She's never said anything of him grinning either. But she's absolutely horrified. Like, she hasn't slept in, I mean, she's gotten a couple of nights, where she's so exhausted she passes out. But I mean, almost every night I've seen him again, and we've talked to her about praying.
Yeah, I was going to say maybe praying would be something. What about praying? Have you prayed together with her? Give her some sort of a
absolutely.
soul, and it's still appearing.
Yeah, we put a cross up in her room. I've told her, to rebuke it. And
okay, you don't have any dream catchers in the room, do you?
Yes.
Get it out of the room, please. Get the dream catchers out of the room. Oh my God. Also,
that was a family. I think that was a family gift given to my fiance.
Take the cross out of the room too. Take the cross out of the room. Take the catcher out of the room, please. Take them both out. And the reason why is because, well, the cross, if it gives you any kind of solace, fine. But a cross basically is bait, and so is a dream catcher. Dream catcher is the worst things you can put in your rooms. People buy them all the time thinking, oh, they're cute and wonderful, but they do catch things, and sometimes they catch things you don't want.
Okay.
So that's why
my fiance's on her way to do it now.
Okay. Let me know if anything. I mean, send me an email, groundzeropdx@yahoo.com. Send me an email and let me know if this stops, because I mean, when I go on ghost hunts and things, I always watch these ghost hunter shows, and they never ask the right questions. And one of them is that, first of all, you ask if the little girl's going through some trauma of any kind. Is she afraid of something at school? Is she afraid of something, of you guys? Have you done something to make her feel afraid? Are mommy and daddy fighting? Is there something going on where she feels a lot of tension? And then you also ask other questions like, do you have an overabundance of religious iconography in the house? I mean, having a cross is no problem, but having like 8 or 9, or like, it's baiting whatever it is that's out there. And then the big one is a dream catcher. If anyone has a dream catcher in their home, you should put it somewhere where it's not on display. And, people argue with me, but no. I mean, if it's just something you just don't want in your home, because what it'll do is it'll attract just as much both good and bad spirits. It'll attract good spirits and bad spirits, and if it attracts a bad spirit, it's best you get rid of it.
Okay, we'll do.
All right, man.
We'll take it out.
All right, thank you.
All right,
I appreciate it.
I'll email you back in 2 weeks.
Let me know. See, that's the thing, is that you can mention a lot of things. You say, well, we got this crystal and we hang it in the house, and we got this other thing we have in the house that's supposed to, keep evil spirits away. And then they say, well, and, we have this dream catcher that's in the house, and it's supposed to keep evil spirits away. We have a Ouija board. Oh my God, a Ouija board. Oh my gosh. But they never stop to think that some of these other things, I mean, Ouija board attracts stuff. Yeah, I agree. And that's why you need to be very careful when you're touching a Ouija board. But it's like, there are other things too that people just don't acquaint with attracting bad spirits, even the black hat man or the evil grinning man. And one of them is Dreamcatcher. It's a creepy thing that yes, it's been known to draw in these types of beings. Anyway, 503-225-0860. That's 503-225-0860. Have you had an experience? I mean, a lot of people are having experiences like this. This new movie out is called The Black Phone, and it's about a child grabber. He's called the Grabber, and he has this demon face, white face, with a hat that he wears because he claims to be a magician. And every time I was watching this, I kept thinking of Hat Man. I kept thinking of this character, this white-faced, grinning man, whether it be Indrid Cold or Apole. And then somebody sends me a picture. You can look at facebook.com/Ground Zero Radio of what they claim to be the grinning man that was taken and attempted to go into the solar plexus of the person that took it. It's interesting. 503-2250. I've never seen anything like this photo. 503-2250-860. We'll be back with more Ground Zero. Don't go away.
What evil lurks in the hearts of men? The shadow knows.
I looked at the end of my bed, and there was a tall man. I say man because of what he was wearing. He had a black brim hat and black trench coat.
I just felt like there was somebody kind of around.
It was just a black silhouette, completely black. I couldn't make out any features.
I never saw a face or eyes, but just this dark kind of outline of a man.
戴着类似蓑笠那样黑色尖子帽，但是看不见脸。
A tall man with some type of a brimmed hat.
There was three of them for me, and the one in the middle was always the guy in the middle. He had a hat on. He was obviously the boss.
I think that he is Lucifer in the flesh. Honestly.
Had its own power. Had its own power.
The vision comes and goes. But tonight, I saw very clearly.
Had its own power.
The vision comes and goes. But tonight, I saw very clearly. Very deeply.
I'm Clay Lewis. You are listening to Ground Zero. So that picture that's on the Facebook page that was sent to me by a listener, a number of other listeners did a reverse address to try and figure out where this picture comes from. So it's not, I don't think it was taken by anyone. It was just sent to me, but it takes you to a Reddit creepy page. It's called Creepy Reddit. Reddit.com/r/creepy/comments. It's called a solar plexus clown glider. It says, found this picture. It appears on page 37 of a philosophy book from 2007 called Why Hasn't Already Disappeared Yet? Written by French philosopher named Jean Baudrillard, the guy who wrote about about Simulacrum. It was the inspiration for The Matrix. It says the image credits for the book are given to a French photographer named Alain Willaume, although I haven't found the glider by looking at his portfolio, though there was one image that looks similar, and I think it might be a glider from a different angle. I tried to contact Willaume, it says, since he has an Instagram, and asked if he could take the picture of the glider and could give us an insight, but he's not active on that account. So apparently, and then if you scroll down through this this Reddit, I put the link underneath it, by the way. There are a lot of pagan art pictures. There's some very strange animal pictures, demon pictures. There's a card of the Knight of Pentacles. Just a lot of strange occult art, including that of a jester. And then there's the typical ghoul with the eyes and the opened mouth. Gosh, there's all kinds of different pictures of this, but yeah, it's called a solar plexus clown glider. Never heard of it, but it's a white character. It's taken from, I guess, a postmodern philosophy book of something that appears to people called a solar plexus clown glider, a grinning entity, a white grinning entity type creature. Let's go to Sarah. Hey, Sarah, you're on Ground Zero.
Hello.
Hey, what's up?
Yeah, that animal in the montage that was screaming scared my cat.
I'm sorry.
Okay. I saw a man in black.
You saw a man in black?
I saw a man in black. A grinning man in black, I swear.
All right.
Okay. I was in my car with a friend, and we both knew about that kind of stuff. And but it was the last thing I was expecting. We were coming off of a freeway, going around one of those turnarounds with the grassy knoll on it that you go around. We've been there 1,000 times. And my friend says, just kind of like, oh, my God, I think that's a man in black. And, you know, if you hear that's a man in black, you think you're going to see Will Smith in a suit.
Yeah.
You know, you're not expecting him to mean it. You figure they're kidding, but I looked up. Okay, there was this man figure standing by the side of the road. He was dressed in a long coat, and he had one of those hats, black hat. But his face, it was white and big eyes and grinning. It almost like a cartoon. It didn't even look real. I mean, it was really.
So it was as if he didn't belong there.
Well, he definitely didn't belong there. It's like, it was like he was a hole in the universe. It was like somebody had torn the universe a little hole, and that was him. I'm not sure if I'm explaining this well, but
was it like he was sucking light towards him, or is that what you mean? It's like
no, he was just standing there.
Was he solid, or was he like a kind of an image, a ghostly image?
No, he was solid.
Okay.
It's as if he were standing there. It's just that he looked wrong. It's just like, oh God, that's wrong, sort of wrong. He okay, you know the movies, Poltergeist movies?
Yes, I do, huh? Mm-hmm.
Okay, Mr. Kane. He looked like Mr. Kane.
Mr. Kane's creepy.
He looks like that pretty nasty, scary, pale guy.
With the white hair and the hat, the white brim hat.
For just a moment, he looked like, I don't know what hair he had or not, but it's just this cadaverous-looking white face, and he grinned. I saw him. He moved his mouth, he grinned. He was actually there. And when we'd gone past it, and then my friend said, oh my God, he's gone now. And I couldn't look around, but I looked in the mirror, nothing to be seen. And I don't know why one would have been standing there. It just didn't make any sense. I said, are you sure that's a man in black? He says, yeah, they look like that. I've seen one before. I saw one on the bus, he said. And it was creepy just like that.
Have you seen this picture of, let me see what that is again, a solar plexus clown glider? Have you heard anything like that in your life?
Solar plexus clown
glider. That's what.
Clown glider.
Yeah. Apparently, I got this picture sent to me, and it looks like the grinning man. It looks like the grinning man, and they told me, they said they tried to get into the solar plexus of somebody or whatever, and I thought, okay, I thought it was kind of creepy looking, and then somebody had sent a Reddit account that was called Creepy, and it had all these demonic pictures. And they talk about a solar plexus clown glider as if everybody knows what one is.
Well, I'll tell you what. When people go out of body, what's supposed to happen is they have this long cord, kind of like an umbilical cord, and that's about where it would hit the body. If it came out of your umbilicus, it would be around just below your solar plexus.
Oh, like Donnie Darko? Like in Donnie Darko? That movie, remember?
Ooh, maybe.
Like Donnie Darko. That was creepy. Let me read it to you, and then we got to go to break quickly. Solar plexus clown glider is the collective name given to a broad range of paranormal phenomena attributed to a corruptive entity which infects weak and vulnerable people through the solar plexus chakra. Originally used by 80s New Age practitioners, the phenomenon was linked to a horror-themed email forwardable in the late 90s, which claimed that simply reading or hearing the word solar plexus clown glider made one susceptible to infection. Others claimed that one became infected through viewing a set of spooky black and white images. Oh my God, I'm sorry. I'm spreading this image around. Oh my God, I gotta go. Jeez. Oh my God, no kidding. If you even say solar plexus clown glider, you're doomed. You could get infected with something, some sort of an infection, some sort of sneezing, coughing, whatever. Oh my God. Anyway, if you believe in that sort of thing, then don't look. Sorry if you look. I'm really sorry. 503-225-0860. Back with more Ground Zero. Don't go away. To read to you an entry that there's this whole, I guess you could say, urban legend, obscure paranormal entity site talking about this clown glider. And I'm not going to say the whole name because of what it said it means if you say the whole name. And it, again, looks very much like the grinning man and the man with the hat, the grinning man with the hat. This is an entry about someone who came in contact with this being, and they don't name names; they just give initials. Here it is. Soon, a mass about the size of a human torso began forming underneath the table. It was a large, translucent blob with no discernible form. C and I started screaming for M and A to come back, and they ran into the room. The blob started speaking to me telepathically, telling me that it was going to spiritually possess me and use my body to murder my friends. As it was speaking, it began climbing into my body. It inserted 3 tentacles into my navel and began to enter my body. Where the tentacles touched me, I felt a sensation similar to an ice-cold needle being pushed through my skin. I wanted to get up and run away, but the creature had me completely paralyzed. A started screaming at me to run and for M and C to do something, but they just stood there dumbfounded. A took matters into her own hands and took a flying leap at the creature and tackled it, ripping it out of my body. M grabbed me under my arms and C grabbed my legs and carried me to the other bed. During this time, my body was still completely frozen. They dumped me on the bed and tried to get me to respond, but after a few minutes, I was unable to move or speak. I have very vague memories of what happened next. All I recall is A, telling me that the creature was gone. The shadow people stayed with me for a few months. I saw them constantly, even when I wasn't high. I personally believe that what we saw that night was real. M disagrees and believes that everything we saw was drug-induced. I'm no longer on speaking terms with C and A, and thus cannot put forth their opinions. I believe that A and I have some sort of psychic powers and that methamphetamines put us in a highly receptive state. To further complicate this matter is the subject of the photos. We all saw shadow people in those photos when reviewed them at a later time. Today, however, M claims that there is nothing in those photos and they all have mysteriously disappeared. All photos were on M's phone. I think he is in denial and does not want to face what the 4 of us went through and so dispose of the photos. This is of that creature that's on our Facebook page tonight. Very creepy. Let's go to William in Colorado. Hey, William, we're on Ground Zero.
Hey, Clyde. Thanks for taking my call.
You bet.
So I called tonight. This is a topic I feel I've been, experiencing my whole life. I'm 55 now.
Mm-hmm.
And my dream life, I guess you could say, is something that is very prevalent with me. I remember these dark beings, entities, whatever you want to call them, even from dreams when I was 5 or 6 years old. I remember these things. I remember them distinctly even now. It's not quite the same anymore, and it's not like it's very prevalent anymore. But I still feel that, and I don't know what you think, but I think when you're asleep and in that state, your mind is almost open to, I don't know, you're open to other things.
Right.
And things can communicate or contact with you. I mean, there's other things. I don't want to take too much time, but what you're talking about, especially in dreams, is very, very real to me. I feel it's not. To me, there's no such thing as a nightmare.
No.
I feel like things have. There's reason. There's presence, and my girlfriend and I are both very, I guess you could call it spiritual in that way.
Right.
And we firmly believe that we encounter things to this day. And again, this is 50 years later.
Well, yeah, it's true that the ones who are most spiritual are the ones that come in contact with more of these beings, because they're always trying to bring you down. They want to show you the darkness rather than to put you in a position where you're gaining knowledge. They want the chaos in your life. And it just, like it says here, it said that these clowns, or whatever they call them, these they call them the clown gliders. What the hell? What was that?
Right here?
Did you hear that?
That was, I didn't. But I can tell you, talking about this even has me in, like, my whole body reacts because it's almost like it is. I'm wide awake and I'm not on anything. And when you talk about these things, it's almost like you are welcoming things to you. So, I try not. I'm a person who believes you don't call out names of things you shouldn't. You call me crazy if you want, but I firmly believe in those things, and I'm even kind of like chilled now. But it's a great topic. I'm glad that you are talking kind of old school Clyde Lewis. I love it. I appreciate your show tonight.
Well,
Clyde.
thank you.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate you calling. I don't know, man. That was weird. That was a weird call. I don't know. Something's up. Something's going on. Anybody listening to this show tonight that's had an experience like this, I like I said, a lot of things inspire me to talk about this stuff. Happens a lot. I mean, like I was saying, you go back in the Bible and read about these characters. I was talking about Lot earlier, Sodom and Gomorrah. You think about how these shadowy beings just show up. Two strangers show up in Sodom and Gomorrah, and they say, "Oh, look, they're angels." But it's similar to those stories of the Men in Black. They show up at UFO stories, and they say, "You didn't see anything. You didn't hear anything. If you say anything, we're going to kill you." It's like the Maury Island story. Remember the Maury Island story where the dark figures of the Men in Black showing up and saying to that family in the Puget Sound, I think it was Fred Grissman or Harold Dahl, came in and said, you didn't see anything. And that if you made any more statements, we would come in and we will kill your family if you say anything about this Men in Black stuff. And, it's like, where do these beings come from? Like Slender Man. I mean, Slender Man was just creepypasta, right? On a website. And it just jumps out at you. And then girls start luring their friends into playgrounds and offer another girl up to Slender Man. I mean, the Men in Black sightings, they've waned over the years, but this Hat Man, Slender Man, clown glider, that's new. It's a new thing for me, coming out of the timeline, getting caught in the paradox, loaded with truth and deception. They're all there, right? We all know who defines truth in the spiritual realms and who the father of lies is. And of course, the father of lies is spinning his own confounding paradox. All things in a liar's paradox can be analyzed and proven, whether they be true or false. Therefore, the old trick of the self-referential sentence, the idea that if the sentence is true, shadowy entities exist, And Mickey Mouse is not a cartoon character, but it shows up in the ether from time to time. Yes, things can be false, things can be true, but yeah, we can't explain these strange entities that come in and out of our dreams. Coming up, Heidi Hollis will be with us to talk about Hat Man. She's written several books about the creature and more of your stories tonight on Ground Zero. 503-225-0860. That's 503-225-0860. Back with more. Don't go away.
Is that a new music app?
Yeah, check it out. Surfer Music Discovery. It links to thousands of online stations, but the twist is you see the song names and artists that are now playing live.
That's different. No guessing. Looks like a waterfall of music.
So many formats. Rock, oldies, country, R&B, jazz, and a whole lot more.
How's that spelled?
Surfer. S-U-R-F-R.
Is it expensive?
It's free. No need to sign up or sign in.
Get the Surfer Music app free from Google Play or the App Store.
So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7 with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on mobile with any smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
Join me on a journey where getting lost is the only true destination. For the past, present, and future all coexist on the same timeline, where happiness is an illusion. This is the future we are in right now, where our phones are the first things that we touch when we wake up, the last thing we touch before falling asleep. Radiant, seductive screens we so lovingly, endlessly gaze upon. Much like you're doing right now. Well, welcome to a future where our true reflection is only revealed once the screen goes dark. Welcome to the darkness. I hope you find it enlightening.
The loudspeaker spoke up and said,
Wait, Jimmy.
The loudspeaker spoke up and said,
Wait,
The loudspeaker spoke up and said, Give up. Give up. Give up. Give up. Give up.
Wait, Jimmy. Wait, Jimmy. Wait, Jimmy.
I'm Clyde Lewis, and this is Ground Zero. The numbers to call tonight, 503-225-0860. That's 503-225-0860. If you haven't done it yet, go to Facebook.com/Ground Zero Radio. Facebook.com/Ground Zero Radio. Take a look at this image. Someone has even posted a color version of this image. I got this image just sent to me. It was just sent to me saying anything that looks like this. And it was, I guess it's something called a clown glider. The full term is a solar plexus clown glider is what they call it. And it's supposed to bring infection when it's seen. I feel even scared even looking at the picture and talking about the picture. But that was... It was sent to me because we were talking about Hat Man. Solar plexus clown gliders. It's the collective name given to a broad range of paranormal phenomena attributed to a corruptive entity which infects weak and vulnerable people through the solar plexus chakra. Originally used by 80s New Age practitioners, the phenomena was linked to a horror-themed email forwardable in the late 90s, which claimed that simply reading or hearing the word solar plexus clown glider made one susceptible to infection. Others claim that one became infected through viewing a set of spooky black and white images circulating online. I don't know if it's this image or not, but someone had told me that they thought that it matched the description of the Grinning Man or the Hat Man or a character that certainly I kept having flashbacks to when I saw the movie The Black Phone, which is playing in theaters right now. And while The Black Phone isn't necessarily about Hat Man, there's a lot of inspiration in that film, I believe, was taken from, I guess, the Hat Man sightings or the Grinning Man sightings. I mean, things begin to unravel all the time when you're talking about the paranormal. Things unravel at an alarming rate, and synchronicities create an air of mysticism that can't be avoided. I mean, you just take a walk into the multiverse. And to do so is a walk into a larger world. All of the things that you've taken for granted, all objects, people, and places which we've been taught is the material world, seem to collapse upon themselves. And we have to somehow work in a bit of quantum mechanics into the mix. You got to work quantum mechanics into the mix in order to avoid sounding like you're absolutely out of your mind. I mean, it's time to admit that somewhere out there, we can hypothesize that histories and rules are being rewritten in order to accommodate what is unfolding in this unpredictable world. The game is changing. When you look at the paranormal game, it's changing. Human consciousness is being prepped and readied for the new sphere of influence that seems to be a bit more chaotic from a darker realm of existence. The frightening thing is that the darkness gathers, and as it gathers, we may find ourselves believing that it's some plot of the devil, when in reality we're actually seeing a more intimate view of the true inner core of the human psyche. It's difficult to describe the various layers of reality and how the multiverse can be compared to a Russian nesting doll. Aleister Crowley said that it's all about magic and the discovery of truth. But he said that magic was like a disease. It was like an infection of language. And so Crowley said that he saw magic in a quantum sort of way. He said that magic was the science and art of causing change to occur in conformity with will. So you look at everything and sum it all up. Magic, the idea of shadow people, frightening characters that leap from books, television shows, movies. You look at characters like Slender Man, for example. You look at other characters that are out there, and they all boil down to a name called Rephaim. Rephaim or Rephaim. It's in Genesis, these tall creatures with white faces and grins. People of the ancient world accepted the presence of these grinning vampire creatures as a fact of history. And the Bible presents them as enemies who are destroyed either by the judgment of God or in battle with men. So everything evolves. Everything evolves, and the same image keeps coming up. This white-faced, grinning character, or the shadow man, or the shadow person with a hat. And it can be called a clown glider, it can be called anything, but it's still the grinning, sick-looking, craggly-faced type of creature, whether it be in the dark or not. And of course, movies are made. We see movies that, there's actually a movie that, if you want to watch it on Netflix, it's called Mercy Black. And that was released on Netflix. Mercy Black is, again, about a character that shows up, comes out of the minds of people. It's a dark character like Hat Man, and it's given many names, but it's called Mercy Black, a white-faced figure wearing a black cloak and a hat. It's the shape of the evil form, like Michael Myers in Scream or the Babadook or Michael Myers in Halloween. But the Darkman, the Grinning Man, Omul Negru is another name they give it. That's what they call it in Europe or in Romania. Like was spoken earlier by a caller, there's the Phantom in Poltergeist 2, the other side. Reverend Henry Kane is one of these guys. He's a beast. They call him the Beast. So the Dark Man, the Hat Man, is a fallen one. Perhaps a man of God that has fallen from grace, or a demon. A demon that either shows up with a black hat or a black coat or grins at you from the darkness. The Hat Man has similar characteristics of other terrifying shadow people. And along with the black-eyed children, the black-eyed adults, I mean, we're beginning to see mysteries and riddles that are hidden in plain sight. Those with eyes wide open are beginning to see that the world is one big paranormal carnival, and that standing there waiting to take your tickets is this fresh-faced devil that will tell you that you have entered into this graveyard disguised as a circus with cute ballerinas and cartwheeling clowns. The fear of the dark, it's a common one. One of the reasons darkness can be so scary is that our eyes tend to play tricks on us when the lights are low. A jacket hanging on the door could easily morph into what looks like a person, or a pillow stuffed under your blankets. That can look like someone lurking near your bed. They don't belong in this dimension, you know, these creatures. That's why, you know, you can be fooled, but most of the time they're right there and they find ways to get in and appear in the shadows. Verum and factum. Verum and factum. Truth and fact. People have experiences such as these. Heidi Hollis has written several books about the subject. She's also copyrighted the names, trademarked the names of shadow people and Hat Man. We're going to talk with her coming up on Ground Zero. And your calls, 503-225-0860. It's 503-225-0860. We'll be back. Heidi Hollis is known for having named, defined, and trademarked two otherworldly realities, the Shadow People and Hat Man. These phenomena expose a peculiar bridge between ufology and the paranormal world that Hollis has been speaking on for over 20 years. With her book written in 1997, Hollis embarked on a unique journey to find answers that led her to inform the world, as told in her book, The Secret War, a true story about the real alien war and shadow people. Hollis has also written several other chart-topping books on a variety of phenomena like the Hat Man, Jesus Is No Joke, Picture Prayers, and others. Hollis is the host of Dark Becomes Light on the iHeartRadio and Coast to Coast AM Paranormal Podcast Network. Anyone who's experienced something out of the ordinary can now speak with Heidi on this program. We're having Heidi back on the show. So good to have her back. Heidi Hollis, welcome back to Ground Zero.
Oh, my goodness. Thank you so much, Clyde. I appreciate the invite.
Right. It's great to have you here. We've had some creepy times here on the show since you've been. I mean, somebody sent me a picture of what is called a solar plexus clown glider. I don't know if you've ever heard of one.
No.
Yeah, if you go to my Facebook page, let me just give it to you right now so you can look at it. It's called, it's facebook.com/Ground Zero Radio. And somebody sent me a picture and they said, well, it was an entity that tried to crawl into my solar plexus. And then somebody had reversed imaged the shot, and it went to this creepy Reddit channel that talked about this character called a clown glider. And it's the grinning man. It's the scary white-faced grinning man in the hat. But this guy's wearing a crown. So I don't know. It's just creepy that these entities...
Oh, I see it.
What do you think?
Oh, that's just so... absolutely disturbing.
Isn't it disturbing?
Wow.
I mean, I just get, and then the site that it's at, they say that they took it from a Jean Baudrillard book, who wrote the story about simulacra, and it was the book that was the inspiration for the Matrix. And I don't know if it's in that book at all. So it was taken by some French guy. I don't know, but it's just, I mean, this site, this Reddit channel where this picture's at, there are a lot of demonic photos too. And so, you know, when we look at this entity like Hat Man, are we to say that it's the devil itself?
We could say whatever we want, but he'll tell you he's the devil.
So he has said
itself.
to people that he is the devil.
Yeah, he has. Yep, several times, many times. And in the beginning, when I didn't know exactly what I was dealing with. I initially called him Hat Man Shadow. It was another form that Shadow people took, because I personally had not seen him. And but I thought it was strange how my college roommate described how he stepped out of the shadows and she could see so much detail, which is really different from shadow people. So I really didn't have an inkling of what I was dealing with. But when people started writing me after I put his image up on my website way back when, they started asking me a question. Who is he? And then they would answer their own question and say, he's the devil, isn't he? Like over and over and over again. And then he started talking. And he would say he was the devil himself. His name was Scratch. And you know what? You'll get a kick out of this, Clyde. I've been getting more emails where people say, he's calling himself Hat Man now.
Wow.
He took the name I gave him. That sent chills. I mean, geez, for him to accept and acknowledge me is really, it grosses me out, to be honest.
Well, we're seeing a lot of depictions of Hat Man, but in various forms. I mean, it's like I've told you before that Hat Man, my stepson saw Hat Man standing on our stairwell, he told me, and he called it Hat Man. I said, where did you get that? Where'd you get that name Hat Man? He says, well, it was a guy standing there with a hat on his head. I says, I'm going to be interviewing Heidi Hollis. She's the woman that created the name Hat Man. He goes, wow. He says, I couldn't think of another name to call him. He was just standing there with a hat on, and he's standing there in our stairwell. And I'm like, wow. I mean, it gave me the creeps that he called it Hat Man because he had nothing else to call it. And, of course, this new movie that's out, he said that he wanted to go see it, this Black Phone, because he said it reminded him of Hat Man.
Wow, that's amazing.
The grabber.
Yeah, I just saw it. I saw it knowing I was going to talk to you today, so I saw it. And, yeah, I think they were totally giving that vibe of Hat Man, grinning with the jagged, disgusting teeth, and him dressing up like a magician, essentially.
Right.
So,
right.
Yeah.
And that is just, it does throw signs up. I know that they did a similar character in a movie called Sinister, where it was another cloaked figure. He didn't wear a hat, but he had long hair and white face, sort of a grin on his face. And in fact, there's, I guess, a scientific group that takes horror films, and they have a group of people watch them, and they hook them up to a heart meter. And they were saying that Sinister used to be the scariest film ever made because people's beats per minute would go up to 85 beats per minute when they would see the white-faced character in the black cloak. And then they said that they were going to do the same with this movie because there were other movies that were similar where, for some reason, there is nothing that brings more terror into the hearts and minds of people than a shadowy black figure in the dark that looks like a demon, or that would look like a pale, non-featured, or with a smile on his face type of creature in the dark.
That's really like, wow. Is that in our DNA to be triggered that way? That's wild. I would have never guessed that was something that was being observed. And I have to give it to you. And I was listening to your intro and reading over some things. I'm like, you are probably one of the more insightful and observant people that I hear out there, pulling together so many different elements and into a closer understanding. So it's really cool to hear how you do that.
Well, I mean, there are so many different ways that it's approached. I mean, like I said, there's a movie on Netflix that didn't get much attention called Dark Mercy. And Dark Mercy is another character that is much like Hat Man. It basically comes and asks children to kill for it. And if they kill for it, then and I think they based it on the Slender Man killing, or the attempted murder of that young girl with the Slender Man. But Slender Man just evolved like Hat Man. It was another character, but this time with tentacles, and and this character, this clown glider or whatever it's called. Some guy was posting that he was, I guess, high on methamphetamine or something, and this being approached him, this black hooded hat wearing character with a white face, and he did have tentacles, and he slammed them into his stomach. He said it felt like needles going into him. Do you get any reports of Hat Man with tentacles?
Well, yeah, Slender Man came straight out of it, I believe, honestly, because shadow spiders are seen right alongside of Hat-Man. So,
Ooh.
yeah. Yeah.
You know
so
what?
I feel it was a straight rip, honestly.
You know, that
Not a-
sounds
not a
like...
big- not a big
No.
reach.
Vecna. Have you been watching Stranger Things?
I have. Yeah, Vecna. Yeah.
is Hat-Man.
Tentacles.
Vecna, it has the tentacles just like Slender Man. And, of course, the Mind Flayer looks like a huge spider, shadow spider. And they're saying that he's the general over the Mind Flayer and of the Demogorgon. But it's just the idea of this creature. It was based on, of course, Freddy Krueger, they say. But because he plays on the child's regret. But the other was the character like Freddy Krueger was based on Hat-Man that went into the dreams of children. It's the child eater.
You were the one that told me that Clive had told you that, or you heard about it somehow. Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah, Clive Barker believed that Freddy actually leapt from the screen into reality. And he was worried that when the Night Stalker, Ramirez, got loose and started killing, he thought that it was Freddy Krueger in the embodiment of Freddy Krueger, that the spirit of Freddy leapt out of the screen, went into the body of Ramirez, and did all the killing, the Night Stalker.
Wasn't he also inspired by actual, like, Hat-Man, like, dreams or something? Yeah,
exactly, that he was having. We're going to be back with Heidi Hollis, Hat-Man, the strange shadow person in your dreams and in your room. You had an experience, share it with Heidi. She's the one who knows about that character. 503-225-0860. That's 503-225-0860. Don't go away.
Where is my mind? Where is my mind? Where is my mind? Way out in the water, see it
The paper's calling him Grabber. I wish you wouldn't call him that. You don't actually believe that story, do you? Because he can't hear you, and he doesn't really take kids that safe.
Oh, you goof. Well, isn't that just peachy keen?
You need some help?
You see that?
Yeah.
Would you hand me my hat? Yes, sir. I am a part-time magician.
Are those black balloons in there?
Would you like to see a magic trick? Nothing's going right.
You can let me go.
I'm thinking about it.
I promise you won't tell anyone.
I know you're scared. You want to go home. I'll take you home soon.
I'll scream. If someone's upstairs, they'll hear me.
The door's shut. No one can hear anything down here. I soundproofed it myself. So shout if you like. You won't bother anyone.
Hello?
New details today in the grisly murders of a local family found earlier this week.
If you try to touch me, I'll scratch your face. And whoever's coming will see and ask why.
This face? I was really starting to like you. Finny! I almost let you go.
There's a combination lock on the inside of the storm door.
What's the combination?
I carved it in the wall.
Hang up the phone!
The tree, the door, the gate. I'd never seen it before except in my dreams. You don't have much time.
You're gonna use a weapon. You raise the phone, step back, and swing.
Look what you made me do.
Please hurry.
You remember what I told you?
Someday I should stand up for myself.
Someday is today, Finn.
I'm Clyde Lewis. You are listening to Ground Zero. My guest tonight, Heidi Hollis, Hat-Man, a new movie called The Black Phone. Certainly brings up visions of Hatman, although the Grabber is the name of the character. Definitely a kid, based on, I'm sure, a lot of John Wayne Gacy stuff, of course, burying children in the basement. But the Hatman is not a well, I don't know. Heidi, you wouldn't call him a physical entity. He's sort of a shadow entity, is he not?
No, he is very physical. He can blend with the shadows. He can seem very shadowy, but that's the unique element about him, why I stopped calling him Hatman Shadow and just call him the Hatman, because he can literally step out and you could see the buttons on his shirt. You could see the chain watch on his hip. You can see if he's got a goatee or not. I mean, he is rather clear and very distinctive and very physical, unfortunately, for a lot of people who have gotten into brawls with him.
Yeah, I've heard stories of people who've gotten fights with Hatman, gotten fights with this character, and I just don't know, though, because he takes on so many traits, like the incubus. He certainly has an incubi type of, I think, vibe to him, but just the idea that he shows up. And another thing is the Black Phone movie. Even though I haven't heard anything about Hatman and telephones, I do remember hearing, though, when John Keel wrote the Mothman prophecies, that there were two Hatmen, if you will, Apol and Indrid Cold, and they were the grinning black Hatmen that would call people on the telephone and harass them with strange voices that sounded like demons. One predicted the stabbing of Pope Paul VI, where he did get stabbed in Vietnam, and the other one was Sirhan shooting John F. Kennedy. And that was back in the 60s, where these Hatmen, if you will, would call on the telephone and tell John Keel and several other people that Robert F. Kennedy's about to die and the Pope will probably be stabbed in the Southeast Asia. It was really creepy.
Wow. See, I never read the book. I saw the movie, and I don't recall them really showing that what they look like or anything like that. So it would take somebody like yourself who gathered up that information, and I'm like, blown away.
Well, there's a guy named Behringer. There was a guy named Behringer who actually said that a man pulled up to him and he was a grinning man. He was wearing a black hat and kind of like a MIB, but he said, "We're from another planet, and we're not going to harm you." But there was another character named Apol who was threatening young people in Point Pleasant, and Apol, of course, is short for Apollyon, which is another name for demon or destroyer. And so, John Keel mentions that Indrid Cold, I know you saw the Mothman Prophecy film, Indrid Cold does call the character in the movie, played by Richard Gere, Indrid Cold does call, but in the true story of Mothman, they were getting several phone calls of harassing people, much like the phone calls that you hear in the Black Phone. So they've taken the Mothman, not the Mothman, but they've taken the Hatman, Men in Black, Child Killer, and then they've mixed it with the telephones. Which did the Hatman make phone calls that you recall?
I can't say that I've had people tell me that he's made a call. They've had dreams of him doing that. Yes, that seems so real. It's hard to believe it didn't actually happen, but not that I know of. But you know what? A lot of these different types of entities work for him. So Hatman has been seen to direct aliens, shadow demons, shadow spiders, incubus, and what does he call that? The old hag. Old hag has also been seen right alongside him. So he seems to be like in control over these horrific things, including that Grim Reaper looking dude.
Yeah. It was really odd. I don't know if you saw the previews they were showing before the Black Phone. There was actually a movie coming out called Smile. I don't know if you saw the previews to that when you were sitting. It's a new movie called Smile about a killer, about a grinning killer or a grinning man type of killer, which I thought, they're bringing back this storyline. They're bringing back this entity in the films. And
fascinating.
And it's just, once again, these are all evolutionary characters from Hatman. They're all being taken from the Hatman.
They really are. That's what it seems like to me too. I'm glad that you said that, because I'm like, as soon as I saw the previews for the Black Phone, I'm like, oh no, not again, because contrary the popular belief, people think that these are all my films and all my stuff. I'm like, no, they're just ripping things off. Though it's trademarked and copywritten, they just, go having at it.
Well,
and it blows my mind too.
Yeah, well, it's an
they reach out
archetype
to me oftentimes.
But it's an archetype that's never been named. I mean, Jung talked about it. Carol Pearson talked about it. A number of people talked about the heavy cloaked man that would be attributed to demons or death, but no one's really had the ability to name it, and you named it and trademarked it. And so,
well, you know what? I didn't know that others were talking about it. I mean, I was a college kid. I didn't look into this stuff, so,
right.
So it's kind of wild. But it's fascinating to me how it has exploded, and I guess putting a name on it has allowed people the opportunity to reach out to each other and support each other, because these are horrific things that are going on with people, and unfortunately he does hone in on children and the things that he says and the things that he does. I mean, it scars people for life. I've had people say I experienced this 30 years ago, and it ruined my life one time because it just dread the thought that he ever surfaces again. And I honestly, I hadn't experienced him directly myself. He was crowding around people that were close to me, even my patients. And when I started writing, when I was just about to put out the book, the first book on the Hat Man, I have 2 books on the Hat Man. He came my way. That was the first time he came for me.
Ooh.
But 2 weeks after I published that book is when it got really personal, because he came at me a few times while I was just about to put that book out. And then 2 weeks after it's published, the 2 girls attacked the 3rd girl about a 15-minute drive from my family's home.
In Waukesha? Oh, my God. Heidi, stand by. We got to go to a break. Heidi Hollis with us, 503-225-0860. That is creepy synchronicity right there. We'll be back. Heidi Hollis with us tonight on Ground Zero. Hat Man. So you were saying that Hat Man had come to you many times, and then you had that incident with the 2 girls trying to lure that one girl near your home, the Slender Man attempted murder?
I can't help but to think that, one of the little girls convinced the other that Slender Man was real because she had experienced him when she was younger, she said. And it's like, I think she probably experienced the Hat Man and was easily convinced to then participate in attacking the 3rd girl because of that. But this happened 2 weeks after I put out the Hat Man book. And I was being absolutely harassed directly from Hat Man at work, at home. It didn't matter. And I'd never had that before. And then it comes out and these little girls have this horrible incident, right near my family's home. It was unbelievable. I took it personal. I'm like, wow. That was...
That's not the only synchronicity, right? I mean, you also have an X-Files synchronicity, too. What's your X-Files synchronicity?
This is something else. I'm just wrapping my head around it. So, Millennium, the final season 3, episode 1, they introduced a brand new character. And my friends were sitting there watching it, and they're like, Heidi, she looks just like you. And then they call her Agent Hollis. And we absolutely froze. We're like, no, we didn't hear that. And then they introduced her sister, had my sister's name, and then her father had my father's name. And I'm telling you, dude, more recently I've found that, my dad had some ties very similar to hers. And it's just, if I wasn't the only, brown lady doing what I do, it might have been a coincidence.
Yeah.
But I was like, come on now. And, I actually, I'm going to be putting out a book soon on some of this stuff because
we'll be careful.
All of this stuff is really, really tied in with all of it.
Be careful.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
This stuff, I mean, it is really scary. It's really spooky. I think people think that it's a figment of people's imaginations, but like you said, you write a book about Hat Man, and then we have the incident with the 2 girls luring the one girl into the playground to kill her for Slender Man. And then I talked about these clown gliders tonight. I'm a little worried about that. We had some guy call in saying that he had been harassed by Hat Man. Then you hear these growls on the phone. That's just it's a crazy. Let's try Becky in Indiana. Hey Becky, you're on with Heidi Hollis. Go ahead.
Hi Heidi, I had a question. is the Hat Man a harbinger of bad news? It seems like he's involved with a lot of children's death, and I don't know if he's a harbinger or if he causes it to happen or both. But twice that I've had my experience with Hat Man, children have died around me. The one was in 2011. My cousin, his wife, they were in a horrific wreck. Their 2 little girls were killed instantly. The night before, I had a dream. First time I ever even heard of Hat Man. He came, and this dream was so real. And so that I kind of took as a harbinger. Well, then I posted the picture in the comment section. In 2017, the boy across the street killed his infant siblings. And the first, they thought it was an accident. The first one he killed, and then 90 days later, he killed the second one. And, before... 2 weeks before, he was trying to get my 4-year-old son to come to his house. And I said, no. I just, because he was older, I'm thinking, why does this kid want to play with my 4-year-old? And I said, no, he's got to stay here. He kept trying to lure him over with Nerf guns and toys. Well, we know now he was probably going to try to act out on my son.
There was a story, like I said, the Sinister story is done by the same people who did this Black Phone movie, and it was about a character called Bagul that was the eater of children. He was something they created that was similar to Hat Man, that was an eater of children called Bagul. So, I mean, I've always attributed Hat Man and the various incarnations as something that harms children. The child
he has
eater.
No limits.
Well, yeah, I mean, they call him the Grabber in this movie. It's called the Grabber, which is, of course, another variation on the theme. So to Lisa, go ahead.
Adults or children, he'll go after anybody.
Yeah.
I mean, he is. He creates problems. He comes because there's problems. He comes because there's illness or death coming soon. I mean, he is attracted to it, and he's the one that threw a tree in a road in front of somebody trying to kill him. I mean, he's as awful as you can imagine him to be.
Lisa in Nevada, you're on with Heidi Hollis. Go ahead.
Hi, Heidi. I don't know if you've had much experience in like the paranormal, but years ago when my grandfather died, a lot of strange things started happening around the home, my childhood home. And there were 5 of us living there, my mom, my dad, my brother, sister, and myself. And we were all experiencing these same things. Because at first you think, well, am I imagining this because I miss my grandfather? But it was like weird things. Like he would come and stay with us for the summers, and he would always perk a pot of coffee on the stove. Around 5 o'clock in the morning, and we would come down in the morning at like 7 or 8 o'clock, and there'd be a pot of coffee, and we'd all ask each other, did you do? And they're like, no, we didn't make any coffee. We don't even drink coffee. And this was happening for some time. And then we'd start to smell his electric shave, or we'd be sitting in a room together watching TV, and the room would get suddenly cold, and we'd all feel it. So we started to tell some of our other relatives about it, and they thought we were nuts. And then one day, it was a weekend, I'll never forget it, the phone rang. My mom picked it up, and she turned white as a ghost, and next thing I know, she dropped the phone, and she was like literally like sitting on the floor, and she was just screaming like kind of like crying and screaming at the same time, and she just kept saying, oh my God. So I picked up the phone, and I heard my grandfather calling for her and calling her name over this staticky phone. So I mean,
that's happened to a lot of people. There's books written on calls from the dead that. I mean,
really?
Yeah. I've done shows about calls from the dead. You get phone calls all the time from dead relatives. That one apartment in Florida where it crashed, it came down. Remember that Florida hotel or apartment complex that collapsed?
That, yes.
Yeah, there was a family that was kept getting phone calls from their dead mother and their dead father.
I don't remember that part of it.
And they thought it was because they were still alive, but no, apparently something was calling them. And
they're on the other side.
Yeah, they both died. It was a creepy story. We were following it. It got really creepy. Let's go to Brady in Missouri. You're on with Heidi Hollis. Go ahead.
Hey, what's going on? I recently, so when the summer started, I'm 17 and I live with my parents, and they don't have the AC on in the house. So I go from during the summer I go from sleeping upstairs to downstairs, and I have a little cot in the garage, and recently, ever since I've been down there, there's been much more of a feeling of there's windows in the garage, you see, and I've become much more of a paranoid person recently. And
why have you become paranoid? What do you see?
I see, I'll see a man with, the show. I've never really listened to this show before, but it really interested me because I see a tall, smiley, white-faced man peeking in at night, and I can't sleep, and I've been painting pictures of him.
I'd like to see some of them. Send them to me, would you? GroundZeroPDX@Yahoo. Take some pictures of them.
Yeah,
I'd like to see them.
Great. Sounds great.
Thank you, Brady. GroundZeroPDX@Yahoo. Hey, Heidi, that was a great show. Went by so fast. I appreciate you being on the program. Where can we find you to tell our stories to you?
Go to HeidiHollis.com and listen to Dark Becomes Light on iHeartRadio, Coast to Coast AM podcast. And be sure to write me. Tell me your stories, and if you'd like some advice or insight, I'm open to all of it because, boy, I've experienced quite a bit myself.
What a great show. Thank you so much for being on the program. It was really good to talk to you again. Yes, definitely. Well, that's Ground Zero for tonight. Remember, keep your mind where they can't get at it. You keep it at Ground Zero. And remember, there may be things under your bed, so please take a look before you climb in tonight. Good night.